Vivian, perhaps you can proceed.
All this will not be possible po without our members. So here are our special partner institution, our corporate members, and our individual members. So, Sir Ernie, you may proceed po with the introduction of the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. And as you know, Vivian, when you have the open forum, you will call the people in order of their raising the hands, and give preference to those who are not here often, right? So the new ones should have the priority, and it's only 1 or 2 questions per person. And from 8 to 9, from 9 to 10, we'll have that thing continue. All right, so let's start. We are very
Sir,
privileged to have.
nandito na rin po si Attorney Dulce po.
Ah, okay. Attorney Dulce, yes, our corporate
Yeah, good
secretary.
morning,
She's world known.
everyone.
She's the UN ambassador for bamboo and all those things. But it's still my role to do introduction. Then she takes over, and unfortunately, she has to leave at 9, so I will take care of the remainder, which is the informal, which is not as important because 8 to 9 is when it's broadcast to Middle East, United States, Southeast Asia, and because of our new board, you know, Ray, the board used to be over 65, all of them. Now all of them are below 45, except one dinosaur, right? It was me. I think I'm on my way out. Okay, so let's go. We are very privileged to have a Renaissance man. Why do I say that? Just look at him. He has the body of a 15-year-old. He breeds dogs. He breeds orchids. He's a doctor, right? He probably loves music and all those things. He's a Renaissance man, right? And so I'm asking why is he going to orchids? And he'll tell you about it. And as we said, we like to do our introductions in a very personal way. So we asked the speaker to give a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, about himself and about why he got into this, correct? And as we know, the objective is not just to have the forum, but to have action after the forum, because our departed chair, guided by, of course, our Spitfire wind beneath our wings, Bernie Yap, said, our forum is not just to educate and inform, perhaps entertain, but to create more jobs outside. And if you read the background about him, you know that he's going to talk about orchids, not just homegrown, but also make it an industry to create more jobs. Okay, now, he's of course a clinical pathologist. He's gotten into this. He'll tell you more about himself. And today, we'll talk about the different species and, we keep on importing when we can grow it ourselves, which means we can create jobs. And with the Secretary of Agriculture, being the president, he has said that he wants to give a new thrust. And the new thrust is not just rice, or import. It is to add value through other products like orchids, if you can pull it off. And Ray is going to talk about it because he knows quite a bit about this stuff. And as I said, he's a Renaissance man, physically fit, intellectually sharp, and his heart is for the people. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ray Lowe, and he will give you his contact number because this is broadcast to Middle East, America, and Southeast Asia. So he will give you his contact numbers later. So on that note, I like to say we are privileged and honored to have a Renaissance man, Ray Lowe, talk to us about orchids. Ray, Madam Chair, Attorney Dulce, I would like now to give the floor to Dr. Ray Lowe, if it's okay with you.
Yes, definitely. And we are honored to have Dr. Lo with us today, Karen.
Thank you very much. Can I share my screen now?
Yes, please. Can the technical team help?
Share. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I'm by profession, I'm a doctor, specifically a pathologist, so I deal in laboratory medicine, which is actually a good start for orchids because orchids are bred in laboratories as well. I'm also a dog breeder, so I use my science background to do all this. Let me tell you my background in orchids. Forget about my profession because that's probably irrelevant to most of this discussion. Back in 1988, when we came back from training, my wife and I were starting our medical practice, and we needed income to tide us over while we were establishing our practice. So I went into cut flower production in dendrobiums, which is a kind of orchids. So I started out with the 2,000 square meter lot, which was actually our backyard in Lucena City. And I bought 100 community pots, which each pot contains about 15 to 20 seedlings. And I started planting that like this. And it took about 6 months to a year, and we started harvesting flowers to deliver to flower shops in Metro Manila. So I was actually delivering them myself while I was establishing my practice. And I started a tissue culture lab because I could not get enough seedlings for my nursery. So to replenish my stock, I started breeding orchids. So from the initial stock I had, I started breeding, and they were all in these bottles that you see here in this 2 pictures on the left. And when they were taken out of the bottles, they were put into community pots here on the side, and finally into individual pots for growing and flowering. I also started collecting select varieties of orchids, other species other than Philippine species. So these are cattleyas that I collected. And I started propagating them as well, initially by vegetative propagation, which is actually from cuttings, and started breeding from them. Also participated in shows, orchid shows, plant shows, and trade fairs. So this is an example of our participation in one of the trade fairs organized by the DTI. And in this other picture is a photo of my exhibit booth in Lucena City, where we also had shows. I was marketing under the label of Dynasty Orchids, which I had registered with DTI, but it's now inactive because I'm no longer in business this way. So I also lectured in the Philippine Orchid Society shows, of which I am a member. And I enjoy doing this so I can impart more knowledge to our countrymen. I became a member of the different orchid societies, not only the Philippine Orchid Society, but the Orchid Society of Southeast Asia, American Orchid Society, Royal Horticultural Society of UK. And of course, being a pathologist, I do a lot of reading, and I also did a lot of reading on orchids with these magazines that the RHS and the AOS put out on a monthly or quarterly basis. So it is always good to be learning the science of the raising of orchids. I attended orchid shows and conferences. The World Orchid Conference is an important venue. It's every 2 years. The Japan Grand Prix is every year, and the APOC is every 4 years. Well, the Philippines is a source of commercially viable orchids. We have over 1,100 species, of which 900 are only seen in the Philippines. And these orchids have actually formed the basis for a lot of the hybrids that are being sold all over the world. Our waling, which is the one on the top left, this pink and sort of tessellated brown orchid, is the mother to all of these other vandas that you see here in the picture. It is an ancestor of thousands and thousands of vanda and other intergeneric hybrids. Similarly, our moth orchids, we call them mariposa. These are Phalaenopsis species, are the ancestors of the most commercially viable orchids worldwide that you see in stores, offices, restaurants, hospitals, etc. And they're usually in white or pink, but there are other colors as well. So this is just a few of the many Phalaenopsis species that we have. Here we see applications of orchids for decoration, both in the offices, at homes, in hotels, in offices, in hospitals. This is in St. Luke's where I work. Orchids are very much used for weddings as well, bouquets, table decorations for receptions, cakes, and in churches. Orchids is a $5 billion US dollar industry worldwide. And these are the major leading players. The Netherlands is a major floriculture exporter. They use heavily automated techniques to grow and market their orchids. So you see this are all automated with rollers and automated sprinklers and all that. So they're very advanced. Thailand is also a major orchid supplier to the world of cut flowers as well as pot plants. Thailand has a very good program, government program of subsidies in shipping orchids by air and in supporting the industry by putting up the Bangkok Flower Center where they do major research under Dr. Rapi Sagarik, who passed away recently. But it is a very, very vibrant industry in Thailand, and we often go there. And in fact, Thailand is a major source of imports for us, aside from Taiwan. And Taiwan is a very progressive orchid industry promoter. They have strong government support. They have put up all these greenhouses for the growers to rent, and they provided credit and expertise from their universities. Singapore is also a major player in the orchid industry. And earlier on, it was the major country in terms of orchids. They have their strong support with the Singapore Botanic Gardens orchid breeding program. They subsidize their air cargo shipments as well of orchid cut flowers. Here we see the VIP orchid garden on the left, and they even have greenhouses. They call the tropical mountain orchidatum for high altitude orchids, which they cannot grow in their usual sites because they need cooler temperatures. So they really go into this seriously. Singapore also has a what we call orchid diplomacy, where they name their bred orchids, their own bred orchids, after prominent personalities and politicians like Nelson Mandela here, as well as the royalty of the United Kingdom. Now, Taiwan has its annual International Orchid Show, and I attended the latest just early this month, from which it was a springboard to my discussion in my column with the Manila Bulletin on the orchid industry, which I titled "What Ails the Orchid Industry." And you can see here beautiful display of orchids, primarily Phalaenopsis and vandas, which are derived from Philippine species. And in that show, 4 of the top 10 winners are Philippine species. These are the Rhynchostylis retusa on the left, followed by Vanda lamellata and Pinalia floribunda, and lastly, Amicella philippinensis. So these are beautiful orchid species. They are profiting from, and we're not. And similarly, 4 others are hybrids descended from Philippine species, including the best in show here on the left. And these are all Phalaenopsis hybrids. What are the impediments to the Philippine horticulture industry? This is a lack of government support. We have absolutely no government support right now for orchid growing, for the orchid industry. And we have overregulation of orchid growing, which discourages domestic propagation of Philippine species. The DENR actively discourages collecting and growing of Philippine orchids for absolutely any reason. So instead, we have to import almost all our cut flower and pot plants. And the most major blow that was given was when President Ramos, then about 20 years ago, delisted ornamental crops as a priority industry due to the long gestation period with loss of critical government funding. The DANR should be part of the solution and not the problem. We are signatory to the CITES, or Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. And the provisions are that they should not be gathered from the wild and sold. And of course, it also has provisions for in situ conservation, meaning we have to preserve our forests, which we are not doing. Instead, we are cutting down our forests. We are down to 23% of our forest cover nowadays, and probably even lower now. They went after small-time sellers and traders of forest-gathered orchids in weekend markets. And they have very strict rules on owning Philippine orchids, no matter what species they are, whether they are threatened or not. So we have a problem with a lot of restrictions on ownership and ex situ propagation of Philippine species. Ex situ propagation means we can do it by laboratory culture from seeds, etc. But we are helpless against large-scale forest clearing, mining, and logging, which is actually defeating the purpose of CITES in situ conservation. So all this is adding up to a very, very dismal picture of the orchid industry. So what can be done to promote the orchid industry? We need government support. It is vital. It should provide technical support and research through state universities like the UP Los Baños, Benguet State University, and others. UP Los Baños has a very good complement of researchers and professors in orchid culture, because they've been doing this for a while, but there's really not much funding for pursuing this on a large-scale basis. And this should be done through a high-value crops development program of the DOST or PICARD. This is taken actually from Toto Barcelona's article before in the magazine, Agribusiness magazine. We should set up greenhouses on government land for rent to entrepreneurs like Taiwan is doing. Right now, it is all open air. Taiwan has greenhouses that are enclosed. They are very climate controlled, automated sprinkler systems. So there is fewer need for insecticides, which we should use to a minimum. And we should set up tissue culture laboratories for large-scale propagation and meristem culture. And I'll talk about meristem culture later. It is actually a form of cloning. We should also consult industry experts and leaders. We have a lot of experts and leaders who we can consult and go into partnership with. Primarily, these are Cora Purificacion. She is the owner of Purificacion Orchids, and they actually export orchids and show internationally in orchid fairs and trade fairs with her daughter, Ana Purificacion. Vanjigo is a long-time orchid grower as well. These are all Philippine Orchid Society members and officers who is actually very much into orchids all her life. And so is Vichin, and I'll talk about Vichin a little more later. And Ramon de los Santos is a good friend of mine from way back. He's now US-based and is an accredited American Orchid Society judge and photographer for the Orchids magazine of the AOS. And he is very active in promoting the Philippine orchids there as well as locally. We have Fred Salud, another friend of mine who's a very good landscaper, and he grows very well orchids. And Romy Apalega, Rolita Spowart, and Tony Padilla are all longtime orchid experts. And we have Jimmy Yu, who is also United States-based, Jaime Chua in Cebu, and Ray P, who is an agriculturist with Dole, I think, and is very well known for growing not only orchids, but other ornamentals. Perhaps we can engage Go Negosyo to set up our tissue culture labs if the government is not keen on doing that or has no funding. You know, we do have problems with funding, government funding that needs to be done through Congress appropriations and all that. So this is not really hard to do because I've set up a culture lab of my own before. So I know how it is done, and it is just a matter of funding it properly and allotting the right space for it. Now, we can actually have a good program for Philippine species by starting with seed propagation. It is possible generally in the lowlands, but we should have provisions for the highland cultivation for cool growing mountain species. So here, the province of Benguet is ideal because it has very high elevation. So you can see here orchids being grown in the flask. So from seeds, tiny microscopic almost seeds, they grow as big as this, and they are now put in community pots here on the extreme right, top right, and then they are put into individual pots and grown into flowering plants later on. So we should select good stock for selfing and sip crosses, meaning we should breed them to each other. And from the offspring of this, orchid seed pods can carry up to millions of seeds. And we can grow them in large quantities and select for better form, color, floriferousness, and good presentation. And from there, we have good varieties we can start with. And you can see here a lot of our Vanda species that are very prominent in the hybridization program elsewhere in the world, and we're not profiting from it. So with a continuing improvement process, then we can select for metacloning some of these select forms of the species. And these are some of the beautiful selected species, Philippine species that Ramon de los Santos has in his collection in the United States. And I'm sure he's very willing to assist us in carrying on with this locally. Metacloning is actually a very common practice. It's called meristem culture scientifically. We take a shoot tip of the plant, sterilize it, and grow the tips in sterilized culture medium called Morishige and Skoog's medium. And this is placed on a shaker that will disorient the tissue and not allow it to put out roots or leaves. Instead, it just proliferates as a undifferentiated form of plants until they are removed from the shaker and put into flasks where they can grow leaves and roots. From there, you can then plant them in pots. So these miracle plants will be identical to each other. And this is what is being done worldwide. And these are very commercially desirable by hobbyists worldwide. They pay hundreds, even thousands of dollars for single plants for these very select varieties. Again, these are grown by my friend Ramon de los Santos. So we can actually commercialize our propagated Philippine species because out of those thousands of seedlings raised, which are not selected for further breeding, they can be sold commercially to discourage forced gathering of orchids in the wild. And if we can do that on a large enough scale, we can reduce or even eliminate forced gathering of these orchids. So we will be actually helping DNR in this manner. And these seedling propagations will be hardier compared to the wild-gathered orchids, which will suffer from shock upon uprooting from their environment. Our seed-grown propagations will be hardier because they are raised in the nursery, so they have adapted to the nursery conditions. The proceeds from the sales can be plowed back into the program for further investment. We can start a hybridization program with this improved Philippine species, which we can breed with other species or advanced hybrids. Of course, we can buy hybrids from other countries, which we can use for our own hybridization program. So these are actually outstanding varieties of orchids that we should be propagating. So even at this stage, the possibilities of creating new, exciting, and desirable hybrids are endless. We just need to have the proper growing area to be able to grow this in large numbers and select the good ones, the best ones. Oops. Okay. So these select varieties will now be cloned using this machine called a shaker, which disorients the tissue, as I said before. And this is what the other countries are using to their advantage. They have a large number of laboratories doing cloning, not only of orchids, but a lot of other ornamentals and other agricultural crops like bananas. And this is what they use for their trade, of course, cut flowers, pot plants. Now, we talked about a long gestation period. Well, it was thought that it takes 5 to 7, even 10 years to flower orchids from the time the seedlings are taken out of the flasks. But now, with the pioneering research of Mr. Vicente Chin in a fertilization program appropriate for our climatic conditions, it now just takes 2 to 3 years, depending on the variety of orchids. Vic calls it aggressive feeding because it employs up to 3 times a week fertilization to promote faster, stronger, and disease-resistant growth, way beyond the usual advice given by temperate country orchidists. So this is specifically adapted to Philippine conditions, lowland conditions. So here is Vic Chin with his sangumay, our native sangumay, and he can grow this up to 1.5 meters in length because of his aggressive feeding program. He is very, very gracious enough to share his experiences and his methods to our hobbyists. And I'm sure he can give us a lot of input on this. So our vision Our wish and vision is that the Philippines will become, if not a major player, a significant contributor to the worldwide orchid industry. That we will preserve our Philippine orchid species, at least ex situ propagation-wise, until we can repopulate our forests when the conditions are optimal for reintroduction. And that instead of importing orchids, we will be an exporter of quality orchids worldwide, thus becoming a dollar earner, not a dollar drain. Thank you very much for your attention. And these are some of my Cattleya hybrids as well. Thank you.
Chair Dulce, carry on. You're now the chair. I'll take over from you at 9 o'clock. Until that time, you're the big boss.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much again, Dr. Raymond Lo, for a very inspiring presentation.
Well, one question. Before you came, I talked to Dr. Ray. He wants us to call him Ray. And he told me he would be able to give on the air so people in YouTube 2 weeks later can know about it. He told me, in addition to chat box, many of whom do not look at it, he'll give us on the air right now his contact number with his office or cell, whatever he wants. Ray, could you give your number now so we're all encouraged that we can follow up?
Sure. It's 0917-539-0022. I put it in the chat box.
Oh, thank you. 09, for those who don't see the chat box, especially YouTube later on, 0917-539-0022. That's so generous of you because some people give the office number. It's so hard, so generous of you to give us your cell number. Thank you, Ray.
Welcome.
Okay. So we can now proceed to the, before we proceed to the Q&A portion, because some might not be able to stay beyond 9 o'clock, can we have a very quick 30-second introduction of all the attendees for today's webinar? You can state your name and affiliation and what is the specific interest that you have in our presentation, in Ray's presentation today. So it will be like a fast fire, quick fire presentation or question and answer portion.
Thank you, Chair Dulce. Just that we're so eloquent. We'd like to just clarify when she says interest, keep it to one sentence at the most.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, we have long speeches. So I'll start na muna, di ba? Para alam nyo. Ernie Ordonez, Alianza Agricultura. Interest, creating an industry. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, I will introduce. I'm Attorney Dulce Punsalan, core sec of the MAP ABCDF. And my interest is actually in the health benefits of the orchids. And I posted it in the chat box. So I hope Ray will enlighten us on this. Okay, so we can have, I'm just looking at the screen. We can have Emmanuel Tixon.
Yes. I'm retired, live in San Pablo City, and I'm interested in orchids just to grow as a hobby and eventually, hopefully, to propagate them.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Edwin Hernandez.
Good morning. I'm Edwin Hernandez from Jardine Distribution. Our interest is in agro inputs, and that's primarily why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Engineer Meneleo Carlos Jr., one of our partners and, of course, staunch advocates of MAP ABCDF.
Good morning. I cannot seem to get my camera on, but my interest is to find out how to propagate these orchids. We can apply to other plants as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mr. Gerald Quilapio.
Good morning. Gerald Quilapio, representing Bounty Agro Ventures, one of the private partners of MAP ABCDF. And we are interested to know where we can be of help in this particular industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerald. And of course, our beautiful Vice President of MAP ABCDF, Ma'am Vicky Winnicky.
Hello, I'm Vicky Winnicky from Kabisig ng Kalahi. My interest is in possible livelihood income for orchid growing in communities.
Thank you, Ma'am Vicky. We'll now call on Mr. Eduardo Rojas.
Hi, good morning. I'm Ed Rojas with National Foundation Inc. I love to watch people grow orchids. One of the most beautiful ornamental flowers I've ever seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mr. Ike Señeres.
Yeah, I'm Ike. I'm into information technology. I can do e-commerce websites. I'm looking at creating an e-commerce site for orchids growers, and also how to bring this technology to the cooperatives so that they can make money out of it. And hopefully with everyone here, I can help in solving the disconnect between the industry and the government. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Ms. Elsa Chico, who's been a regular attendee of our webinars.
Morning po sa lahat. I'm a faculty member po from Piatti University part-time. I'm very interested to all the topics that we are just taking or will be taken in the future. I'm also interested about the production of the orchids. Thank you very much po.
Thank you very much. Next is Rocky Ilustre Hernandez.
Hi, good morning. I'm the wife of Edwin Hernandez. I think he mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I'm really interested in, learning how to propagate my orchids and my cattleyas here because I have a lot, and my husband will attest to that. And I want to, I want to learn how to, properly propagate them and hopefully, if possible, make a livelihood out of it. Thank you.
Yes, and then finally we have our Miss Bernie Yap and Vien of MAP ABCDF. So we'll call on Miss Bernie first.
I'm Bernie from MAP, from multinational detailed to MAP to get the speakers for the weekly forum. Interested that it is only now that we've featured something about the orchid hobby, which might become an industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Vien of MAP ABCDF.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vien po from ABCDF MAP, acting secretariat together with Henry Boy, but then nasa ano lang po siya, field work. Yan po. Thank you very much po.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can you just turn on your cameras also so we can have a group photo before the Q&A? Those who are able to turn on. Okay. Miss Elsa, Miss Vicky, Bernie, and Sir Ike, and Engineer Carlos. Okay.
I cannot.
Oh, anyway, we have your pictures, sir. Okay, Sir
Okay.
Ike, can you turn it on? Okay, I'll take the photo now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Give us your best orchid smile. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Okay. Thank you. So,
Dulce, by the way, Dulce,
Yes?
did you ask Kaling Yang to introduce?
Sorry.
Kaling,
Hi,
nakapag-introduce
Kaling.
na.
Kaling is here.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi. Hello, Kaling.
Hi. I'm
did-
actually Carolina Young, Kaling for short. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm very interested in everything that's local. We have a mini forest in our farm where we have a lot of endemic trees. And so we also have lots of local orchids, which are so beautiful. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Lo.
Thank you. Thank you,
Good morning,
Kaling.
everyone.
Yeah, good morning. So now, for those who have questions, kindly raise your hand so we will properly acknowledge you. And for those who may be unable to ask the questions personally, you can also type in the chat box. So do we have Ka Ernie? Maybe you can start the ball rolling, and then we
Wait,
have
no, I usually ask at the very end of the whole thing.
Okay.
But I'd like to just restate that you're limited to one at the most two questions to enable others to ask. At 9 o'clock, we have to stop the formal session and proceed after that. But we request you keep your questions to one or two. Priority given to those who are not sukis, the new ones. Them.
Yes.
And finally, if you don't know how to raise the hand, just wave your hand furiously. And Vivian, you tell us, no? If they wave the hand furiously and they don't know how to connect to the raise hand, we'll call them. And then after that, chat box. Chat box is the least important because we prefer the live action. Thank you.
Okay. So is there anyone who would like to ask the first question?
Ako, I'll ask the first question.
Okay, Ms. Rainey.
Ray, if I am not mistaken, parang I always associate Ming Ramos, the wife of FVR, as an orchid hobbyist. Is she not? Why would?
Yes, she is.
Why did he ban it?
I don't know.
Was it parang so that it could be cornered by them?
Well, she really didn't have a commercial orchid nursery. She did have her own Upland Cavite farm, where she also has a restaurant, but it's really not that big scale. I mean, it's just like a local nursery. So I don't think that's a cause. I think it's more of pressures from other industries who are competing for priority investment funds.
Okay. So it was always a funding issue mainly.
Yes, and of course, without interest from the government, we're not going to get anywhere with this because we simply need, first of all, to correct the regulations that is hindering us from benefiting from our own natural resources like orchids. Other countries are now exporting our Philippine species. Tayo, hindi tayo makagawa nun.
Okay, thank you for the response. I saw a question in the chat box from Mr. Emmanuel Tixon. Would you like to ask Dr. Nilo?
Yeah, actually, you can just go to his Facebook page. And he has, I think he has a pin there on aggressive feeding. And if not, you can go to the different groups, orchid groups on Facebook, like the Vanda Enthusiasts of the Philippines, or VEP. Right. So they have this Facebook page where they have pinned the aggressive feeding program. So you can really readily access it. It's very easy.
Thank you very much. Do we have the next question for Ray? Maybe I can also ask. It's already in the chat box. What are the health benefits that can be derived from orchids, specifically from the leaves, the flowers, the buds, the stem, and the roots? Because I have friends who are avid orchid lovers, and they have shared this link with me. So being a medical practitioner and a pathologist, kindly enlighten us.
Well, actually, the problem is we have no scientifically proven benefits, but orchids have been used as medicine in China for hundreds, even thousands of years. So whether we have objective benefits that can be proven scientifically, we have not gone into that. Perhaps the Chinese have from where they are doing these studies. I haven't gone into that because simply that is not a primary concern of mine as far as orchids are concerned. I'm concerned with how to introduce orchid growing first and make sure that we profit from it rather than other countries.
Yes, I asked that question because you were talking about possible, government support as well as private sector support. I will share this. I'm a technical panel member of the Department of Science and Technology. And among the priority areas, not only in the DOST, but I would say in the 10 priority national areas of innovation would include food and agribusiness as well as healthcare. So looking much deeper into the health benefits of the orchids in the industry would definitely go a long way. So that aside from the aesthetics of it and the economic value and of course the cultural and the environmental benefits, this would be an added of added interest for possible funding from impact investors as well. So I'm just sharing this, Dr. Lee.
Okay.
So thank you. Do we have other questions from the floor from our participants?
Si Ike may question.
Okay. Sir Ike Sineres, you are acknowledged.
Yeah, Dr. Lo, sino ba talagang in charge nito sa gobyerno? Kasi it can be DA, it can be DNR, it can be DOST. Now, the state universities are all on their own. They're not being supervised by CHED, when it comes to this. So I think DTI should even go into the equation. I remember there was a time na iba yung priority products ng DTI, iba yung priority products ng DOST. Para namang hindi sila nag-uusap. Now, a lot of these are environment related. Hindi lang ito agriculture.
That's right.
Related, no? But are they talking to each other? Should they be doing it? Even DOH should be involved kasi yung question ni Attorney Dulce, no? And then DOH has a lot of laboratories that can be used for this. So who is really integrating all of this? Or are they not thinking about integration?
Nothing. There is no integration.
Para bang kanya-kanya ba talaga takbo nila?
Right.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Which is sad.
Just to augment, before I call on our next participant, my suggestion would be to just address this issue that has been pervading. Is number one, there is a call for proposals for potential projects for funding. So I will send the link to the secretariat for the call of proposals, and maybe the documentation as well as the parts of the presentation that you have shown can be part of the proposal, so we can move it forward. I think I'd like to acknowledge also the presence of our auditor of MAP ABCDF of Zumanity Group, the chair of
Attorney
Zumanity.
Dulce, excuse me,
Yes?
I think my question was not answered.
Okay. Dr. Ray, can you answer the question of Sir Ike?
Well, actually, there is no coordination at all. The orchid industry has been left an orphan. Nobody is in charge right now. The DNR is actually over-regulating it to death. The DA is not lifting a finger. The state universities, like you said, are on their own and they have many priorities. So orchids are simply not one of them. So unfortunately, my answer would be a no, nothing.
But Dulce, may I intervene? That is why we have forums like this. I'd like to let you know that 1 month ago, I was elected by PCCI to be in charge of all agri roadmaps. I've told that to the senior people in DA, and they've agreed. Vivian, take this down because we're measured not on the forum, but also on the actions. I will make sure that we have a meeting with Brain Law and the top person in DA in charge of the high value crop. And then just to let you know about the coordination, which Ike Seneres brilliantly points out, the format we did in DTI, which we're doing now at DA, since I'm now in charge, is that we have what you call the roadmap plus there is what you call an implementation team. without implementation team, the roadmap sits on the shelf and it's totally useless. So the implementation team has in their group the private sector players and the relevant departments. And then they meet so that the coordination that Ike wants happens right in that. Now, I'm not talking theory. I've been doing this for industry for many years. For example, when I was head of cement, in my implementation team, I had DNR for the licenses, customs for the customs corruption. And they meet, and the reason they get scared is because it's a public-private group called by government, because if Ray goes by himself, who's his connection, correct? And what's his team? What he wants to talk to different departments, he cannot. But this team makes it official. And then in the team, the head is the industry champion. So Ray could be that or someone else. But of course, it all depends on whether it's feasible. If it's not feasible, it's a waste of time. But if it's feasible, then we should do it. Now, the reason well, as I said, I was elected, I'm now getting involved, right? And basically, I will not say we'll do something Orchid. It depends on the feasibility. We're businessmen in MAP, ABCD. I mean, it can be a hobby and not an industry if it's not feasible. But if it's an industry, as Ray suggested, then we've got to get this thing done properly, like in Taiwan, Vietnam, and Thailand. This country is really messed up in that area. Agriculture is rice. So we got to do this. So Ray, you accept, right? I'll connect you to the top person. It'll be a 3-person Zoom meeting, if possible, personal meeting. And we'll get this, and we need some basics now. So Ray, are you agreeing in front of everyone who's listening 2 weeks from now in Europe and America?
I'm okay with it, but I would like to bring the Philippine Orchid Society officers into the picture, so you have a better input rather than just myself. I'm just one person, but together with a lot more people from the orchid industry, so we can actually propose a more coherent program with inputs from everybody.
Excellent. Okay, you're the boss, because for me, the boss has got to be the private sector. Government should support, not the opposite, where they see the things they have to follow. They don't know business, right? So thank you, Ray. I'll make that as a commitment. I'm also committing to make that thing happen. Correct. But before we do that, I cannot have a discussion like we're having now without the benefit of some cost-benefit analysis. Correct. In other words, you cannot go and say, I love orchids. Can you? No. From a business point of view, here is the potential. We import too much. Here is the possible investment. In other words, we've got to go in there prepared. And before we talk to them, I'll talk to you, Ray. I love to talk to people after the forum. So when we get to DA, we look really smart, because if you go there talking about life and culture, it won't work. It's got to be business. That's why we're here. Ray, there are very few who are really business in agriculture, right? In terms of an NGO focused on that. And that's who we are. Thank you, Ray. So Vivian, take that. And if I don't do it, please recommend my firing, because I want to deliver on what we say here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ka Reni. Of course, the question of Sir Ike Senores was answered earlier regarding the coordination and more. We would look for definitely more in coordination and collaboration. I'd like to acknowledge also the presence of our MAP ABCDF auditor, Mr. Robert Laurelio Panco of Zumanity Group. Sir Robert, can you share with us, I think this is a connection, because currently the Zumanity Group has a power of 3 project, which include flowers. And this is being done already in a Paradiso team farm. So Robert, can you share this with us?
Sure. Yes. Well, firstly, I'm sorry I'm mobile in the car, but let me try my best now. So the power of 3 has 2 meanings. Now, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, crops, livestock, and of course, what do you call that? Flowers, now, which is the orchids. We have so 3 activities starting from February all the way up to summer, which is up to May, June. Okay. Also means tree, puno. Okay, so we are trying to promote planting trees. Okay, so this is in Paradiso Team Farm, which is in very near Tagaytay, Mendez, Cavite, just around 10 minutes away from Tagaytay. So we'd like to invite everybody. It's of course for all the MAP members, it's free, and of course you'll probably enjoy it because we have resource speakers that including different people expert in different fields like banana, tissue culture, and then we have orchids, etc., etc. So we'd like to thank you, everybody who basically is interested to deal with us, and don't hesitate to call us up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a question for Ray?
No, well, I have, but I'm going down now. So let me try to tune in maybe in the next one. Okay, but thank you so much, and congratulations for our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Do we have other questions? Otherwise, we'd like to have a sharing, which definitely would be inspiring. I'd like to call on Kaling again, Kaling Yang. And if she has a question for Ray, and then maybe she can share her experiences with orchids as well.
Excuse me, point of order. It's 9 o'clock. You have to leave at 9.
Yes,
You're
yes.
in demand of everyone. I appreciate you're doing this. So at 9 we end, and we talk about next week and all that, about 2 minutes, and we go to the open one, which will extend to 10.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Can you show the next schedule for next Tuesday?
First certificate of appreciation.
Yes. Kindly mute your microphones. We have feedback. Okay. Please proceed. Yes. Kindly take over.
Okay, I'll take over. Very Dulcif. The first we like that I'd like to ask the secretary if nobody knows how to mute everyone except this. All right. Okay. Now, we start on time. We end on time. So the first meeting. And now,
Ernie ang nag-e-echo.
Yeah. May I ask Vivian to see if she can you correct this echo? Good. Okay.
So far, sir, okay naman na po.
I believe there's still echo. So unmute everyone. Unmute everyone. Okay. Now, unmute everyone. So let's go back. All right. There. Oh my God, there's an echo. Perhaps Bernie. I will mute myself. Everybody, Bernie. Just read information, and then I'll come. All right, Bernie. I'll unmute. So Bernie, can you please read next few slides?
So we virtually present to mukhang lahat tayo nag-e-echo. Hello. So we virtually present to Dr. Ray Lao this certificate of appreciation as our speaker today. Let us give him a round of applause. And then for next week, we have invited the National Food Authority Acting Administrator Rod and his special assistant Roger. So we will send you the details when we prepare the form invite. Thank you.